In this episode, I will review 10 novellas which everyone who loves fiction should read for reasons that will be clear by the end of this episode. These novellas are powerful literary means for exploring profound themes that delve into the very existence of human condition. In the following compilation, 10 novellas emerge as examples of contemplation grappling with the themes of existentialism, spiritualism, love, death, grief, mourning, madness, the meaning of life, and many philosophical inquiries. These works serve as a portal into the depths of the human psyche, inviting readers to confront the complexities of their own existence and contemplate the fundamental questions that have haunted humanity throughout ages. Through rich prose and nuanced characterization, these narratives navigate the labyrinthine corridors of the human condition, shedding light on our most profound fears, desires, and existential dilemmas. In terms of writing style, these novellas belong to the traditions of realism, magical realism, surrealism, and literary modernism. To start with, let us talk a little bit about the novella as a genre of literary writing. A novella is a work of fiction that falls between a short story and a novel in terms of length and complexity. It typically ranges between 60 and 120 pages, allowing for more character development and plot intricacies than a short story, but still maintaining a concise and focused narrative compared to a full-length novel. Novellas often explore a single theme or idea in depth, making them a unique and an engaging literary form. The first novella is The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. Originally published in 1886, the story follows the life of Ivan Ilyich Golovin, a high-ranking judge in the Russian judicial system. The narrative begins with the announcement of Ivan's death and then delves into a retrospective exploration of his life. Ivan is portrayed as a man who, on the surface, leads a successful and conventional life. He follows society's expectations, pursues a career, gets married, and has a family. However, as the story unfolds, it becomes clear that Ivan's life is marked by a profound sense of emptiness and spiritual dissatisfaction. He comes to the realization that his life has been a pursuit of societal norms and material success, devoid of genuine meaning and fulfillment. The novella explores themes such as the nature of a meaningful life, the consequences of living an inauthentic existence, and the inevitability of death. As Ivan grapples with his terminal illness, he confronts the existential questions of life, death, and the meaning of human existence. Ivan's journey is a reflection on the superficiality of social conventions and the importance of spiritual and moral considerations. A life spent in pursuit of social status, wealth, and conformity may lead to a hollow and an unfulfilling existence. Ivan's gradual awakening to the true nature of his life serves as a cautionary tale, urging readers to reflect on their own values and priorities. As such, the novella is a powerful exploration of the human condition, examining the search for meaning in the face of mortality and the consequences of living a life disconnected from one's own authentic self. Our second novella is Joseph Conrad's masterpiece Heart of Darkness. Originally published in 1899, the novella explores themes of colonialism, the pursuit of power, and the moral consequences that come with these. The story is framed as a narration with Charles Marlowe, an English sailor, relating his experience of traveling up the Congo River into the heart of Africa to a group of friends on board of a boat anchored on the Thames. The story that Marlowe tells goes like this. The central character named Kurz is a mysterious and enigmatic European ivory trader who has become a godlike figure among the local African tribes. He becomes increasingly captivated and unsettled by Kurtz's narratives. Upon arriving at Kurtz's station, Marlowe encounters a man who has descended into madness and savagery. We learn that Kurtz has taken advantage of the local population for ivory and has succumbed to his primal instincts and thirst for power. The novella raises questions about the morality of European imperialism and its impact on both the colonizers and the colonized. The title, Heart of Darkness, refers not only to the physical journey into the African continent, but also to the darkness within the human psyche. The narrative is full of symbolism and allegory, and Conrad's writing is characteristically profound and contemplative. It is a masterpiece that delves into the depths of human nature, exposing the dire repercussions of unchecked greed and power. The novella has sparked controversy among critics in the way that it depicts Africa and the ways in which, while debating colonialism, it tends to repeat Eurocentrism in subtle ways. Our third novella is The Overcoat by Nikolai Gogol and originally published in 1842. The plot follows Akake Akakevich, a low-ranking government clerk in St. Petersburg. Akake is an obscure, underpaid and a socially awkward person. He is meticulous and hard-working. Akake's overcoat is at the center of his existence. When his overcoat becomes so tattered and beyond repair, he decides to buy a new one. He saves money for a few months and finally manages to buy a new overcoat. One day, while returning from a party, Akake is attacked by two thugs who steal his new coat, leaving him devastated. The police are indifferent. When next day he returns to his work with his old coat, his colleagues advise him to visit a certain important personage in the city who could help him. When Akake does what his colleagues advise him to do, the important person only humiliates him and refuses to offer any help. Without a coat, Akake catches a cold and has fever. A doctor is invited to check on Akake, and the doctor says that Akake will die soon and suggests that the landlord start ordering a coffin. After a few days, Akake dies. No one notices his absence at work. Soon after, the important person feels remorse for treating Akake in such a bad way, and one night, while returning from a party, he encounters the ghost of Akake, who rips off his fancy cloak and takes it from him. After that day, the ghost of Akake disappears from the streets, probably because the coat he took from the important person fits his shoulders well. The Overcoat explores several themes and motifs, capturing the nuances of human experience in a society marked by bureaucracy and social inequality. Gogol's eye for detail and his satiric style make the text dense and engaging. Let us talk about some key themes and motifs in the novella. The story highlights the stark social distinctions of the 19th century Russia. Akake, as a lowly clerk, is marginalized and mistreated by his colleagues, emphasizing the harsh realities of class differences. Materialism is another theme. Gogol critiques the societal emphasis on material possessions and the impact of consumerism on an individual's sense of fulfillment. Isolation and alienation are prominent themes throughout the novella. Akake is portrayed as socially awkward and isolated. Gogol uses satire and humor in face of the absurd situation. The exaggerated characters and situations serve as a commentary on the absurdities of bureaucracy and social hierarchies. Overall, The Overcoat is a rich exploration of societal critique, human resilience, and the search for identity in a world marked by bureaucracy and social differences. The Overcoat has had a significant influence on literature, inspiring later writers and contributing to the development of Russian literary traditions. Its enduring appeal has made it a classic in the literary canon. The next novella is The Metamorphosis, one of the best-known short fictional works of Franz Kafka. First published in 1915, the novella relates the story of a salesman called Gregor Samsa, who wakes up one morning to find himself transformed into a huge insect and subsequently struggles to adjust to his new condition. This sudden and unexplained metamorphosis becomes the central focus of the narrative. The story begins with Gregor, a hardworking salesman, waking up late for work. He looks around his room, which seems ordinary, and decides to go back to sleep to forget what has happened. He tries to roll over, but he cannot. He is stuck on his hard, curved back. When he touches himself with one of his many new legs, trying to scratch an itch on his stomach, he is disgusted at himself. Gregor initially struggles to accept his new insectile body and its limitations. As he grapples with his physical transformation, he also faces emotional and psychological challenges arising from his isolation from his family. He reflects on his life. He thinks about how dull life is as a traveling salesman and how he would quit if his parents and sister did not rely so much on his income. From this point onward, his transformation only intensifies. Initially shocked and repulsed by his appearance, Gregor's family gradually become indifferent to his appearance. His sister Gret takes on the responsibility of caring for him, but even she grows increasingly distant. Gregor's emotional and physical decline eventually lead to his death alone in his room. The novella ends with a sense of detachment, highlighting the indifference of life to the struggles of characters. The novella explores the dynamics of the Samsa family and the impact of Gregor's transformation on their relationships. Once dependent on Gregor for financial support, the family now sees him as a burden. Metamorphosis is seen as an allegory for the dehumanizing effect of modern society, where individuals can be reduced to mere economic entities. The novella's open-ended conclusion invites readers to reflect on the meaning of life, the human condition, and the often incomprehensible nature of our experiences. The fifth novella is The Blind Owl by Sadegh Hedayat. It was published in 1936. The story is a surreal and psychological exploration of the protagonist's descent into madness. The first-person narrative unfolds as a confessional, with the protagonist addressing an imaginary audience or an enigmatic listener. The plot follows an unnamed narrator who is an artist and is haunted by a sense of alienation and existential despair. There is not much action in the novella. The story is non-linear, filled with dreamlike sequences, and the lines between reality and hallucination are blurred. The novella delves into the psychological torment of the narrator, who is trapped in a nightmarish cycle of obsession, guilt, and despair. The disjointed and fragmented structure of the novella mirrors the fractured psyche of the narrator. The main themes of The Blind Owl include existentialism, isolation, and the thin line between sanity and insanity, mirroring the broader existential concerns prevalent in the 20th century literature. The protagonist grapples with the absurdity of life, the futility of human existence, and the inevitability of death. The blind owl, a recurring symbol, represents the dark forces that torment the narrator and symbolizes his descent into madness. Overall, The Blind Owl is a haunting exploration of the human psyche, blending elements of Persian folklore and mysticism, existential philosophy, and surrealism to create a deeply introspective and enigmatic work, adding layers of complexity to its interpretation. Albert Camus published The Outsider in 1942. Through the first-person narrative perspective, the novella follows the story of Meursault, a detached and apathetic Frenchman living in Algeria during the French colonization. The novella opens with Meursault learning about his mother's death. Surprisingly, he shows little emotion at her funeral and seems indifferent to the rituals associated with death. Meursault's emotional detachment continues as he becomes involved with a woman named Marie. The plot takes a turn when Raymond, Meursault's neighbor and friend, requests his help in seeking revenge against an unnamed Arab man who allegedly disrespected Raymond's girlfriend. In a heated confrontation on the beach, Meursault ends up killing the Arab man. The second part of the novella focuses on Meursault's trial. However, the trial doesn't revolve around the act of murder itself, but rather Meursault's perceived lack of remorse and his unconventional behavior. The novella explores existential themes and the absurdity of human existence, questioning society's expectations and the meaning of life. In the end, Meursault is sentenced to death for his apparent moral and emotional indifference. As he awaits his execution, he grapples with the inevitability of death and reflects on the absurdity of life. The Outsider is a seminal work in existential literature, exploring themes of meaninglessness, individuality, and the human condition. The seventh novella is entitled Jamilia, and it is one of the well-known works of the Kyrgyz writer Chingiz Aitmatov. It was first published in 1958. Jamilia tells the story of the eponymous character, a young Kyrgyz woman. It is set during the Second World War in a Kyrgyz village on the sprawling steppe of the Asian country. As men are in the war, it is only children, the elderly, and women that are left in the village. Jamila's husband is one of the men at the front. The story is framed and it is told from the perspective of Said, now grown up, who looks back upon his childhood when he was 15 years old. Jamila is assigned to take sacks of grain from the threshing floor to the train station. Said, Jamila's brother-in-law, and Danyar help her with the daily mission. Danyar is a young soldier who, wounded in the war, returns to the village to recover. During their monotonous journeys between the village and the train station, Jamila sings for them. Danyar is isolated, shy, and does not interact with people that much. One day, Jamila jokingly asks Danyar to sing for them. After a pause, he does sing. She is astonished. His voice rises and penetrates the silence of the steppe, leaving both Said and Jamila surprised at the beauty of his voice. Out of this connection through singing between Jamila and Danyar, love slowly grows despite the challenges posed by traditions. After some time, against all odds, Jamila and Danyar eventually decide to elope and leave the village on one autumn afternoon. All this while we see them through the eyes of the narrator Said as he remembers his childhood, and he gives us what he thinks about Jamila and Danyar's relationship. Said is fascinated by the power of love and the bias of the traditions. An aspiring artist himself, Said captures this moment of love between Jamila and Danyar in a painting and keeps it away from the rest of the family. It is the same painting which he looks at years later when he recounts the story to us. The novella explores the themes of love, sacrifice, and the impact of war on ordinary people and communities. Aitmatov skillfully weaves cultural elements and the harsh realities of war into the narrative, creating a powerful and emotionally resonant tale. The central character, Jamila, becomes a symbol of resilience and courage as she navigates the challenges brought about by the war and traditions. The novella is celebrated for its lyrical prose, vivid characterization, and its ability to capture the human experience in the middle of historical and cultural challenges. It evokes life on the Kyrgyz steppe in a beautiful and poetic way, depicting how people lived, sang songs, and loved while facing challenges and hardships of the war. Our next novella is by the Colombian writer Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The novella genre was one of the favorite literary forms for Marquez. Marquez published No One Writes to the Colonel in 1961. The novella opens with an elderly man whom we know later as the Colonel, and he is waiting for something. Then we listen to a conversation between him and his wife talking about a dead person and a funeral. We learn that the dead man is the first to die of natural causes in the town for a long time now. The town, we learn, is under martial law, and movement, especially that of crowds, is not allowed. Several storylines intertwine: the story of the Colonel's dead son Augustin, who was killed a few months ago by the government, the story of the political tensions and instability in the town, and finally there is the main plot that centers on the Colonel himself. The Colonel, a retired veteran, is waiting for a letter for his pension which he was promised during the war. For 15 years, every Friday, the Colonel goes to the harbor and waits for the postman to bring his letter. The mailman always answers emphatically, "No one writes to the Colonel." The feeling of waiting, as if everything is suspended or trapped in a freeze time, pervades the entire plot of the story. In his memoir entitled Living to Tell the Tale in 2002, Marquez writes that the story of the Colonel was inspired by his grandfather, who was a colonel himself and who never received his pension as he was promised. The town is a stagnant world where nothing much happens. Most characters are not named. The Colonel lives with his wife and they live in destitution. We learn that they sell their properties such as clocks and paintings in order to live. The Colonel lives in a world of make-believe, but he is respected by town people. He is overly hopeful while people around him are more aware of the scale of the political situation. The novella is full of symbolism. One of these his symbols is the rooster. It belongs to the colonel's son Augustine, and it represents his rebellion and downfall. But it is also the greatest source of redemption for the colonel and the town. The colonel refuses to sell the rooster even when he needs money. He believes that the rooster belongs to the town, to everyone. The rooster not only promises to earn money during the cockfighting season in January, but also hope for change. It symbolically ties together the three different plots of the book. The novella is praised for its economy of language. Marquez creates characters that are earnest and persistent, allowing for the reader to hope against the inevitable. We, along the protagonist, raise our expectations to prevent sorrow and hopelessness from settling into our consciousness. To summarize it in one image, would that be of an old man waiting in vain for something important that never arrives? Our ninth novella is Earth and Ashes by the Afghan writer Atiq Rahimi, written in 1999. The novella delves into the devastating effects of war in Afghanistan. The narrative unfolds against the backdrop of the Soviet-Afghan War, and it captures the profound impact of conflict on the lives of ordinary people. Written in the second person, the story follows an old man named Dastagor and his young grandson Yasin as they embark on a journey to visit Dastagor's son Murad, who works in a coal mine away from the village. Dastagor and Yasin, the only remaining family members, are going to inform Murad the devastating news that the whole village, including Murad's home, was burned down and that all his family members were caught in the attack except Dastagor and Yasin. The novella is divided into two parts. In the first part, Dastagor and Yasin are waiting at a checkpoint on the roadside for a truck that gives them a lift somewhere close to the mine. The second half is about the ride and the arrival at the mine in a week-long journey. Rahimi uses silence and non-verbal communication as powerful tools in the narrative. The characters often express their emotions through actions and expressions rather than words. This reflects the ineffability of the trauma caused by war and the difficulty of conveying such experiences through language. The young boy Yasin, we are told, is deaf after the attack. Dastagor's journey to find his son becomes a metaphor for the disruptions and ruptures caused by conflict. Along the way, through their eyes, the reader encounters the brutal realities of war. There is abandoned trucks, tanks, deserted landscapes, and looming mountains. Central to the narrative is the theme of loss. The destruction of the village and the search for a missing family member emphasize the grief experienced by individuals and communities during the war. The emotional weight of mourning and the struggle to find solace form a core aspect of the novella. The novella is a powerful exploration of the human cost of war and the profound changes it brings to the lives of those caught in it. Rahimi's evocative prose captures the pain and resilience of the Afghan people during a chaotic period in their history. Earth and Ashes stands out for its brevity and conciseness. Despite its short length, it carries a powerful and emotionally resonant narrative. Atiq Rahimi skillfully uses an evocative prose to convey the impact of war on a personal and intimate level. The final novella is entitled Grief is the Thing with Feathers by Max Porter. It was published in 2015. In terms of form, the book is less obvious than the previous works. The novella creatively employs different styles such as memoir, fable, and essay in a language that spans both prose and poetry. The story revolves around a family in London grappling with the sudden death of the wife. The narrative is divided into three perspectives: the father, the two young sons, and a mysterious crow that enters their lives after the death of the wife. The father, or the husband, is a writer and is writing a book about Ted Hughes. The crow, embodying grief itself, one midnight enters the life of the remaining family members, offering a mix of comfort, chaos, and challenge to the grieving family. The novella explores the complex and surreal nature of grief, combining diverse languages and perspectives to delve into the emotional aftermath of loss and the process of healing. Aesthetically and structurally, the novella is composed of memories, thoughts, conversations, and past events. This complex, meandering mixture reflects on suitable ways to write about topics as difficult to express as loss, mourning, and love. The unique structure and poetic language of the book contribute to its distinctive portrayal of the grieving experience. In the exploration of existentialism, spiritualism, love, death, grief, mourning, madness, the meaning of life, and profound philosophical inquiries, the 10 novellas present a display of human experiences and existential dilemmas. Each narrative delves deep into the recesses of the human psyche, unraveling the intricacies of existence and the quest for meaning. These novellas probe the fundamental question of the meaning of life, inviting readers to contemplate their own existence and the ultimate purpose of human endeavor. Philosophical inquiries permeate the narratives, challenging assumptions and promoting reflection on the nature of truth, morality, and the human condition. In conclusion, the 10 novellas offer a rich tapestry of existential exploration, spiritual revelation, and philosophical introspection. Through the prism of human experience, they illuminate the profound complexities of existence, inviting readers on a transformative journey of self-discovery and contemplation. In confronting the existential abyss, these narratives ultimately affirm the enduring resilience of the human spirit in the face of life's most profound mysteries.